just like that. Okay, so Santa Teresa, baby.
Tommy on me, I'm talking about
Cartagena Part 2.
Hola.
Ahead of schedule. Yep. Abdu's leaving, and so we are fitting it in.
Yep.
Make it work.
Yeah.
We're making it work.
We're gonna miss you, bud.
Totally gonna miss you guys too.
Honestly, man, like you're dead to me. Like if you're,
probably never gonna see you.
You know what I'm saying? Like just casually.
Last time.
Man, it could always be the last time.
Yeah, that's true.
But that's why we made the most of last night, made the most of the last couple of days.
Yeah.
We definitely squeezed the juice.
The last week? Yeah. For being in Colombia and lockdown for the last week, we did a lot of shit.
Yeah.
Went to the beach a couple times.
We've seen the city now.
Yep. Even today we had our own little mini pool party.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Even though everything started being shut down at 12 noon, meaning you're not allowed to be out on the streets, which I'm also confused by because I was wiping myself dry on one of our many balconies.
What were you wiping dry
It was after a shower, okay? Because I want to masturbate.
Gotcha.
So I didn't do it in the shower. No, but there was like there's a wedding party going on.
Yeah.
With a ton of people.
How dare they not invite us?
I know, right? And also,
Okay,
how did they get away with this shit,
Yeah.
They didn't get caught or something, but yeah.
Yeah, maybe the cops were giving them a break because they had a lifetime sentence. They wanted to let them enjoy the day.
Yeah. That's it. This is like their last meal.
Marriage is that lifetime sentence,
Oh, true.
When you meet someone who's married and they're like talk like very highly of it, that's a exception, not the rule.
Totally the exception.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, you talk to most single people, they're not necessarily happy here. So
yeah,
it's not.
Yeah, we're just about here not enjoying the now.
It's just most people not being happy.
Yeah. A lot of people don't know how to find happiness. They got like the wrong attitude. Like, some people like I haven't found the right person yet also, and it's just like you're just not the right person.
Yeah.
It's not about you need to change
your standards
attitude.
are too high.
You need to change who you are and how you approach relationships and everything.
From a very like meta level and thematic answer to your question about turning L's into W's, it seems like anytime you shed your skin, so to speak, like from an identity perspective, like I identify with this way of living my life or this way of being, like as an example, you were an accountant at one point, and then you had to shed that skin to be able to step into another version of yourself when you said to yourself, hey, the juice of being an accountant isn't worth the squeeze anymore, and you had to move on. So like a lot of people would look from the outside and say, wow, he spent all that time being an accountant, that must be a huge L. Mm-hmm. But meanwhile, the way we always talk about it is that's one of the most important W's, one of the biggest wins of your life was being able to move on when it was no longer serving you.
Yeah. I think you touched on a really good point there. It's like the identity part is like you getting yourself wrapped up into this identity that you created for yourself, that you think you're supposed to have, that others think you're supposed to have, that you think others think that they want you to have. And you get lost in it, and then you realize you don't even like it. You've created this identity, and now you're attached to it, and now your whole being is defined by it. And so now that you don't like it, it's like, goddamn, now you hate yourself. And it's like, well, how do you get away from yourself then? Well, if you're acting out, you'll get away from yourself by over drinking and overdoing drugs and hanging out with the wrong people and overworking, whatever that vice is going to be for you, right? But yeah, man, that was definitely a big turning point for me. I don't know if that's how I would answer the question.
That needs to be your answer. Mosin did his turn. All right. No, sure. But that being said, I would be open-minded to hearing your ideas on like this identifying before we move on, because I know Ian, you got a lot of good power. I mean, have you read Power of Now, Abdu?
No, I don't do that stuff.
True. The three of us have.
You're identified with an identity that doesn't do that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I don't identify with someone who isn't.
Books.
I read fiction. I read like fun stories. I don't read self-help books. I just can't get through. I get through one chapter. I'm like,
I just finished reading The Hobbit.
I'm done.
I just finished reading The Hobbit, and it was awesome. And I don't know if Ian, I don't know if you're gonna read it, but if you want to take it on your trip, you can take it, because I don't need it anymore.
I already read it. The Hobbit's great. Also, what I love about the stories like The Hobbit, there's still so many lessons you can take from it without having to read a self-help book. Like Shantram, same thing.
Yeah, like The Alchemist. Like The Alchemist is just, I was just listening to it last night before I went to bed, and it's just aphorism after aphorism. Yeah. It's just all of it. talks about his sheep, and it's basically like metaphorical with like people being sheep and then following your legend or your personal legend, which is your dream.
Really, any good fiction book is a self-help book, but it's just packaged differently.
Yeah.
And I just like the way it's packaged, so that's usually how I think.
Alan Watts talks about Zen is it the Way of Zen or the Art of Zen? The Way of Zen. He talks about how you can use books like Alice in Wonderland, which we also have in front of here, that Ian picked up in Mexico or was it Costa Rica, and he picked it up in Mexico, and he talks about how you can use books like Alice in Wonderland, where it's like mostly like gibberish and like bullshit and like just like made up stuff where it doesn't have any like tangible meaning, as like Zen, which is just being playful.
Mm-hmm. True.
So that fiction element has like a real important pointing at how to live.
So why in particular, like you chose a few books to bring with you?
Oh, these are just the ones that I have with me.
Got them along the way.
Oh yeah.
So I read it last year, and then I recommended The Hobbit to Jonathan, and I got it recently, and then I just saw Alice in Wonderland in Mexico in the English section, and there wasn't a lot of books.
Yeah.
And I was like, makes sense. And I remember Alan talking about it as well, so I brought it.
We've got Fear and Loathing as well with us,
Yep.
and we also have Seneca, and we also have Alan Watts with us, so we have tons of books, but you brought The Alchemist, and Mosin's been watching crypto, so like amongst the four of us, we got a good mastermind going here.
Yeah, a little mini library going. Also, I just want to point out this Alice in Wonderland book that you got here. What stood up to me the most is, if you're watching, you can see like it is gold.
Yeah.
The
All
pages here on the
are,
gold.
like tinted gold on the outside.
It's so old school,
Same
and
as
it
this
actually.
Colombian Club
There
Colombia.
you go. Looking at this makes me thirsty. No, but this reminds me of like growing up. Like I was surrounded a lot more by Qur'ans and stuff like that, and there were a lot of Qur'ans and religious texts that follow this style.
Yeah, they do.
Would you consider this some sort of religious text in a way?
It could be. I mean, that's kind of the point that Jonathan was making. I mean, it could be. I mean, basically, Alice in Wonderland is like acid. No way. I mean, it's basically a psychedelic trip. She's eating mushrooms to change sizes. And then she's going down
Yeah, she is
rabbit
eating
holes.
mushrooms. I
I'm pretty
forgot
sure
about
it's like
that.
one of the novels that started the context of like going down a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Oh,
Literally,
Oh,
first
true.
day, yeah, she follows
The
the
little
rabbit and
turn.
goes down a rabbit hole.
In the same way that J.R. Tolkien in The Hobbit made the aphorism out of the frying pan into the fire.
Yeah.
Same with Lewis Carroll and into the rabbit hole,
Yeah.
down the rabbit hole. Here's like the gibberish
and
where
Abdu with brisket for the biscuit.
risk it for
Yeah,
the
brisket for the
biscuit.
biscuit.
I think I heard that.
Popularized by Abdu Zaghloul.
I think I might have heard that when I was playing hockey in like an elementary school. So
Yeah,
I don't know
that
if
guy heard it from
I
me.
don't know if
I'm
that
pretty
can
sure that's
actually be
from the
They all
attributed.
heard it
Ferrell
from me.
movie with the comedian, the race
Who
car.
do you
NASCAR
think he got it from?
Oh yeah, Talladega
Yeah, Risk It
Nights.
to get
Talladega
Talladega
Nights.
Nights. That is a
Yeah.
hilarious movie.
Well, Ferrell's
Yeah, he killed it really.
he made some really bad, he's made some really bad
Hey, you got
movies.
it.
Sad.
You're
I think
gonna
he's very
strike out.
talented.
You're gonna strike out if you go swing for the fences.
It's so true. What's that? I do like that movie he did with Kevin Hart. Fuck, what's it called?
Well, while Abdu's thinking of it, let me just finish that point on
Get Hard. by
this
Ian Ziegler.
example with Lewis Carroll and Alice in Wonderland, where Alan Watts is talking about how like any text could be used as like a Zen Buddhism guide. It's "'Twas brillig and the slipby toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe. All misme were the borogoves and the mome wraths outgabe." It's like doesn't actually mean
See,
it.
now, this is why I hate Shakespeare.
Oh, shit.
This is why I hate Shakespeare, because it's so fucking confusing. You have to like you need what is it for lyrics, like a lyric genius?
Yeah.
You need like that shit for like Shakespeare
Yeah.
and books like this, because like you otherwise wouldn't be able to
I was
understand.
gonna say I don't know what you're that because like that is not, I wouldn't say like most of his is pretty readable.
Pretty
I don't
pretty
know.
understandable.
No, that was a poem from the looking through the looking glass.
Okay. Yeah, because here's a poem at the end where he says, you know, the whole so Alice in Wonderland was created. Lewis Carroll, the author, he had some like nieces that he would go in a boat and he would tell them all these fantastical stories. And one of them was the actual who Alice was based on.
Yeah.
And
You just improving stories.
yeah, basically. And then this book is actually where the merrily gently down the stream.
Yeah.
It's from that. And then the way he finishes out the Alice, the looking glass, he says, "In a wonderland they lie in the boat. dreaming as the days go by, dreaming as the summers die, ever drifting down the stream, lingering in the golden gleam. Life, what is it but a dream? And that's how he finishes it off.
That's great.
Like,
What is it but a dream?
what is it? Life, what is it but a dream?
Do you think this guy had access to psychedelics?
No doubt.
There's a lot of there's a lot of crossovers from it, but it doesn't seem like I looked it up, there seems to be no evidence that he directly took psychedelics. Like, he wrote it before LSD existed, so definitely wasn't acid.
Yeah.
Though
Our guy was
it's
on one.
I would say it's also the
He was on one.
like
Oh,
it,
he was in one.
it follows
Yeah.
like a psychedelic like archetype, but the psychedelic is really like a mystical thing, which psychedelic wouldn't have a monopoly on. Like, a psychedelic drug doesn't have a monopoly on eliciting that type of experience. So
Absolutely.
you could have that access from.
It just allows us all to access that sort of experience, basically.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
more accessible.
It just like, we're so overstimulated in terms of always on our phones,
Yeah.
and we constantly have music playing at all times, and we're constantly looking up other people's ideas and thoughts. And I've realized in the last couple of days, we are constantly trying to get away from being with our own thoughts. Everything we do. Everything we do is trying, like, when we're listening to music, we're listening to someone else's thoughts. When we're reading something, we're listening to someone else's thoughts. When we're watching something, when we're on Instagram, when we're talking with someone, it's almost exclusively other people's thoughts. And most people just don't get time for the silence. And like, I'm reading Walden by Henry David Thoreau. So 1850, he went and built a cabin in the woods and lived there for 2 years. And he just talked about how for days he just doesn't do anything. He'll just like do some work, but then he'll just like sit and go for a swim and just walk around the woods and look at everything. And
That's old school. There used to be a lot more of a thing.
Yeah.
Just sitting in your rocking chair on the
Yeah.
porch and just
But
be there with your thoughts.
none of you may be into this. I don't know if that makes sense. But anyway, Mike
Probably
Beluski
not.
just bought a bunch of property in New Brunswick,
Oh, yeah.
and he's planning on building like glamping tents and different things on the property because he has tons of space. I think a cool project for like us collectively as his friend group would be to build some sort of like escape cabin or something like that, where it would be like real solitude. And it would have like a fireplace, it would have like a comfy chair and a library, and it would have like room to draw and room to create and to make art, something like that. I don't know, maybe a sauna or some shit.
Yeah. It's
Maybe you do
locked
it
from
by
the outside, so you're not allowed to leave it. Even if you
can't
want to.
leave.
That's it.
You're stuck in there, cabin bound. and anyway, like, because New Brunswick just seems like the rent out there is so cheap, and he's gonna be out there with his family, and it'd be cool to like be connected to that part of the world. That'd be something that I'd be into doing. Maybe to go there for a week every year or something like that. A week every 2 weeks every year.
Having Mike Beluski, I feel like as more of an active part of our lives would be great. And you guys got the experience at Costa Rica.
Yeah, my life was improved by
really
hanging out
well.
with him for sure.
Yeah.
I became funnier. I became a better listener. All by hanging out with him for like a couple weeks, and only like minutes or hours at a time, not even extended periods.
Yeah, it's interesting how extroverted he is, but he does know when to listen for sure. It's interesting.
Yeah, one time I had a phone call with him after we had a bad trip on psychedelics, and I felt like the most listened to in my entire life. For like 30 straight minutes, I was just talking, and he was just like, he was actually paying attention to what I was saying, and it felt really good to be listened to.
Greatest gift you can give someone is the gift of your attention.
I don't think there's anyone better that you could be around while going through a bad trip than Mike Beluski.
Yeah, for sure. He should be a shaman.
Yeah.
So already talked about it. He's the wizard.
Yeah, and he already basically is just like doesn't get paid for it.
Yeah.
He's just giving his services out for free.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, in terms of the question that you asked, Mohsen, about turning L's into W's, I think of a bunch of stuff like my first relationship where we invested so much time in each other and then it ended up ending. Like, a lot of people would say that, that'd be an L, but I feel like that was a W in terms of what I learned about myself and what I learned about what I would want in a relationship and what I learned about where I'm at in my life and allowing that to actually happen. Like, at the time I thought to myself, like, I should be in a relationship. I should be moving towards that future. And it was okay to give myself more time. It was okay to learn more about myself. So that's one big one. Gloria's, we talk about a story of a coffee shop in Toronto where I made an emotional decision and wrote a bad Google review that blew up in my face and in Abdu's face. And I think of that as an L, but turned into a W. So those are like kind of the two ones that come to mind, but I'm sure there's more. You guys have any?
For me, it's like the cliche relationship stuff. So like, it's almost like it's the typical where like, oh, okay, I thought I was in love with this person. I thought I was gonna be with this person. They left. Now it's like, what the fuck do I do with myself? And you're basically at that point looking for distractions or ways to improve yourself, because like you're telling yourself you're just improving yourself to improve yourself. In reality, in the back of your head, you're like, maybe she'll want me back if I get better, you know. And then eventually it gets to the point where you're just you forget about her, and you're just improving yourself because you just want to improve yourself. So when it gets to that point, that's when that's when it shifts from taking the L to turning to the W.
One of the things that surprised me about that when you had that relationship that ended was you went on the depression diet where you started eating super healthy, which is the opposite of how most people would experience that, as they would go through something that would be uncomfortable, or they go through something that would challenge them, or that would shake up their reality. Like we talked about identity, building identity around a relationship and identifying with that. And then most people, where they would crave the sugar or they would go like deeper into the rabbit hole, you like were doing the opposite. So you're eating like healthy and clean and avocados and stuff like that. So it was surprising because like when I think of the depression diet, I think of like cake and sugar and
to be fair, that's what either one of the ways. Like it's obviously some people like let it go in the den, but I'd say it's pretty common people outside of a breakup when they start eating healthier and start exercising again because they've stopped. They were taking it for granted. And then
also they still have some hope that they can potentially make it work. There's two ways. Either on one side, it's rare that a breakup is clean and it's even, right? There's the one that's being broken up with, and they're like, maybe I can get them back. Yeah. And then there's the other side where they're like, okay, I dropped this person. Now I'm gonna work on myself because I want to fuck other people. Pretty much. Like that's just the way it is. So either way, both people are typically working on themselves, but for different reasons. But yeah, the depression diet never looked better. Okay. I had a fucking like 6.
Did you go to Thailand after that? I remember seeing some pictures of you in Asia, and you looked fit, dude.
I went to Thailand. It was great. I looked at a photo recently of that Chris took of me because I was just like I was sleeping at his place for a few days, and he saw me shirtless. He's like, "Whoa, dude!" And he's like pulling out his phone and started snapping shots of me. Yeah, that's a buddy. That's a friend right there. And it's actually his birthday tomorrow, so. But yeah, I looked at a photo of that recently. I was like, yeah, I can get back to that, but it's just a matter of once gyms open up again, because I'm not going to do the working from home stuff. No, I just can't do it.
That's
working out from home.
Break that down.
Can't do that.
I hate it.
Yeah, well, you just gotta find something you like. But
you gotta put in position what you hate more.
Yeah, there's like
I'm comfortable right now. That's the problem.
There's like an overarching theme where Ian was saying.
Kidding, it's a joke.
Cecilia, don't worry.
Ian joked right at the beginning that he was saying like COVID was basically the W where the L was perceived as, but there's actually a lot of truth in that. It's like where it just depends on the way you look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at it from like a total lives, like maybe not. But if you look at it from my life, from an individual standpoint, it's not bad. But you doing well, you doing what you want, I think does help. I think Alan Wattsy talked about in our culture, we've somehow convinced ourselves that because someone's going to go out without a meal, that you shouldn't enjoy your meal. Some sort of like guilt with doing well in life. When actually, I think the goal is to not. There's not like one fixed amount, and then you try to get the biggest piece, but you can make it bigger for everyone. Like there can be more for everyone. So someone doing well, you give back, and it's better for more people. Yeah. Like can't be like people are doing bad. I guess I should self-sabotage myself as if that's going to do something for them, which it doesn't.
Exactly. There's always shitty things going on in the world. There's too much to focus on all at once. All you can do is kind of like stay in your own lane and also just try to help the people around you.
Yeah, back in the day, you'd like have the village over would just get massacred. You wouldn't even like know about it.
Oh yeah, true.
Get like
20
horrible things going on, but like there's no communication. Like we can't.
Like, what's going on? Do they have a barbecue going on over there?
Sounds good. Is that
that's roast. They're roasting something.
I think it's a pig roast. I think it's some pig roast. Yeah.
What are you saying? Oh yeah, so I was reading the book on history, and
H.G. Wells.
with technology, now someone living in the East Coast of the United States, like New York, is gonna be more similar to cross country to someone in California because news and media and all the communications. Whereas back in the day, two towns and two villages in the same state would be more different than people in different states now. Yeah. Like we're more like people like Americans than Americans in one town over 200 years ago.
Yeah, they'd have to send a messenger to like sprint for like 3 days to get over there.
Yeah, it was like they would find the person with the best distance runner in the village and be like, well, you're the guy who carries our mail now.
Who's the skinniest of you guys? Start running.
I know we got horses, but we just want
That's what they're busy.
So Mohsen, where do you see marijuana playing a role in your life?
Losing more brain cells.
Losing brain cells? Look how you're gaining them.
It's being real.
Losing brain cells and losing my memory slowly until I have full-on dementia.
It's called presence.
32 years old with
It's called
dementia.
presence.
No short-term memory anymore.
No short-term memory.
Where am I?
We were just talking about earlier today where, was it forgetting is a blessing or something?
Yeah.
It's like forgetting your failures or whatever, your
Yeah,
traumas or
forgetting
something like
in
that.
I never made a mistake in my life.
Those are all the brain cells. You're focusing on those brain cells.
Imagine that.
Selective brain cell loss.
Yeah.
No, and here's a very practical example of like forgetting being necessary. Like you're eating a nice cup of ice cream, and if you didn't forget watching Two Girls, One Cup, you're gonna have a bad time.
Look, thank God I never watched that.
Dude, are you kidding me? That's the only reason I eat ice cream.
Ice cream quotation.
Ice cream quotation. No, I mean, I guess I have to answer the question.
You have
like,
to.
how do I got to? How am I going to use weed?
I don't know. Like for me, for example, I think there's an element of creativity. Obviously, if you're doing it too much and you're just watching Netflix, that's not going to help. But I do find it very, very creative.
Well, it's an altered state of consciousness.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Altered state of I do like meditating, smoking weed and meditating.
Yeah.
I have any mystical experiences on weed, man.
True.
I fucking
Smoking weed, meditating, and listening to music, like meditating, like using the listening as the meditation, and actually hearing notes that you'd never heard before in your favorite songs.
Yeah.
I think weed, like at the beginning years, like in late high school years when I first started smoking weed, it was very eye-opening to me and helped me think in different ways and expanded my mind and all of that. So the relationship I have with weed now is kind of different. Like now I know what to expect from weed. I'm not going to have that kind of eye-opening experience, although it will still help me think in different ways.
Yeah.
Just not to that sort of intensity or whatever.
Yeah.
Now it has so many different uses, right? It's good for music, it's good for food, it's good for sex, it's good for whatever, right? Now, actually, what I think about with weed when I get high sometimes is I feel a little bit of anxiety sometimes. And when I do, it's actually a really good test to help myself calm myself down and breathe myself into the high rather than be caught up with the anxiety of the high.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. It's a good test. It's like, oh, fuck, I'm feeling anxious. I'm high and I'm anxious and my thoughts are racing and blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh, hold on, buddy, relax, calm yourself.
Can you sit with it?
Take a deep breath. Can you sit with it? Can you actually just get into the enjoyment of it rather than seeing the shitty part of it?
Sure.
Because you're going to get whatever you focus on. So you can take that back into the rest of your life when you're not smoking weed, when you're not high. Anytime you get that kind of like anxious pattern feeling where something's going on, you can ask yourself like, hey, do I actually need to be anxious about this right now? Is something actually wrong right now? Is there actually a danger in
Maybe
right
all
now?
needs one deep
Or
breath.
can I just
I remember one time I
breathe into
smoked
this and
weed.
enjoy this moment?
I'm like, I think I have to go to the hospital because I like checked my pulse and I'm like, it's pulsing in my chest. I gotta go to the hospital. But then I pulled out my stopwatch on my phone and I did it. I'm like, oh, it's normal. It's literally just tripping myself out.
Joe Rogan talks about one of his favorite things to do to like test himself mentally is to take like a massive edible.
And go into sensory deprivation tank.
That is sketchy.
Oh, that could have been worse. I mean, especially like we don't really have a lot of life-threatening day-to-day problems.
Mm-hmm.
So getting a little bit of
I stubbed my toe today.
yeah, almost dead. Fatal.
But he stubbed it also again yesterday. So.
Same toe.
So I honestly, like, if he stubs it 2 more times, he's a goner.
Lose a toe.
Dude, you gotta amputate the whole foot.
Lose a foot.
That's it. Yeah.
Just go for the leg. The whole leg, just to be safe.
Fucking stub.
Give
Never
an inch, lose a
step-
foot, dude.
Dude, just get into a wheelchair. You'll never need feet again.
No, that's a good point.
Give an inch, lose a foot. That's the grower, not a show. That's a grower, not a shower theme song. Yo, speaking of weed, should we light it up? I feel like we need to spice
Is it too early?
Why not, dude? Nah, I don't think
Ah,
No, we good. We good.
You twisted my arm.
Yeah,
So
we
you,
just-
you guys finally got to witness me smoke weed yesterday.
Yesterday you did?
Last night.
Yeah, in the jacuzzi.
The
Oh,
only
Get the lights on in the jacuzzi.
The four of them got in the jacuzzi. Is that what it
Yeah,
was?
I want to see you nice and anxious on the podcast. Let's get you going, buddy.
for me, I only smoke weed when I am coming down from another high, because it just basically numbs the other.
So anytime you're done watching the Notebook,
They just
like
cuts the high.
Exactly, it really does cut the high. So Ian knows not to even bother offering it to me.
he's very.
He gets it.
He's very.
Here's one thing I'd like to be
Well-
able to capture on the show is just like Abdi, your philosophy around making the executive decision to cut your losses, so to speak, or at least leave Colombia to go experience something different, right? Can you talk us through your decision making process there?
Yeah. So one of the things when I was reading The Alchemist, I'm trying to basically, I'm doing my best to follow my gut, because I found like when I follow my gut, usually things work out. And when I don't follow my gut, then I end up like regretting whatever the fuck I did.
What do you mean by your gut?
So I have a feeling, intuition. I feel like this is the right move, and anytime I question it, I end up regretting. That
So it's
I
almost like
questioned
the first instinct. Is that what you mean?
it. Yeah, basically. But then like not just believing every first instinct. It's like why your gut's not just feeling this for a specific reason. There's like list the reasons why. Like why is my gut telling me to do this? If it seems valid, then fucking go for it. So. Basically, and a lot of that came through when I was reading The Alchemist,
Nice.
where I forget the way they say basically when you want to like
When you really want something, the whole universe conspires to make it happen.
exactly and omens also it
Omens.
talks about omens, like basically signs of what's going to happen or what you should do or things like that. And I basically just saw a bunch of omens that I should be going to Mexico before I'm done traveling here. So I'm not going to fight it. I'm just going to go with it. I'm going to go. It has nothing to do with you guys. I love you guys.
It's
I'm
not.
miss you
It's
guys.
not you. It's me.
It's me. It's the omens, guys. I'm sorry. I'm leaving you for the omens.
That's what you tell her. It's the omens, babe. I'm sorry.
All the others.
It's not you. It's not me. It's the omens.
Everything is pointing
Follow
that
the-
way.
Oh,
There's a big booty bitch in that direction.
Yo, I couldn't believe
Got
that.
two huge omens on her.
That's basically salt. What you just said.
I gotta ask you. So I agree because man, what a fucking mastermind driving to British Columbia was, listening to The Alchemist and busting loose the game. So I don't remember every detail of The Alchemist, but I remember it being inspiring. So talk to me. One of the things I was like, obviously pay attention to the omens. It's like basically doors opening in front of you, opportunities presenting themselves, calling you. Talk to me. Like, give me an example of just one where it's like, I should, check it out, Mexico. Why not?
Yeah. So there was a bunch of things where like on my way here, I just messaged I just saw one of my friends' stories. Her name was Heather, and she was on a boat, and I was like, is this you now? Like, where are you at? And she's like, I'm in Mexico, and I was
Nice.
like, oh shit, okay. And that was just the beginning of it. And she's like, you should visit me while you're here or something. Or she was like, even like maybe I'll come see you. We'll figure it out. And then so there was that. There was Colombia when we showed up. Everything just starts getting shut
Get
down.
tight.
Yeah. 10 p.m. to 8 p.m. curfew to 12 p.m. on the weekend.
Exactly. That's a big
You
one.
can't even be outside right now.
Yeah, exactly. It's literally illegal to leave
Unless
the
you're
place.
getting married.
Yeah, exactly. Unless you're getting married. The church. That's the only exception, apparently. But yeah, there's. But there was. We're gonna move on from that one. there was we were at like also an illegal club. Jonathan and I, these two were busy.
We can't believe we got in.
Huh?
We got in.
We
That was so fun.
Way past
Actually,
curfew, we had a great
that was
time
super
there.
fun, man.
We had a great time there. I met a group of people traveling from Israel, and they told me like, oh, you know, where are you coming from, stuff like that. I told them, oh, I'm just like visiting Colombia, and they're like, what the fuck are you doing? You should be in Mexico.
Dude,
Mexico's amazing.
So that's an omen,
Yeah.
right? Because without knowing any of Ian and I's experience,
Mm-hmm.
is meeting Israeli people in Mexico and Costa Rica was common, like very common.
Mm-hmm. They seem to be well traveled, eh?
They are, so they know where to go. So
Mhm.
listen to what they say.
Mm-hmm. So basically, yeah, there was that, and then I forget. There was a couple other things, but
We had
I forget.
so many good things to say about it too, right? We told you all about it.
Oh, exactly.
True.
Yeah,
We had such great time.
I have a quick audio.
And you. Oh, and then I also looked at the COVID numbers, the COVID cases. Costa Rica's fucking skyrocketing right now, while Mexico is like plummeting.
Testing anybody.
Mexico's done. They're like, yo, honestly,
Oh, is that it?
we're out of the world.
Yo,
stage.
I remember that at the
If you
beginning
can't
when
test for it, it doesn't really happen.
I remember when
Oh,
the
that's a good
Ontario
point.
numbers started going up, and they're like, yeah, the numbers are going through the roof, and I was like, well, are they testing more people? And they were testing 5 times more people than they were the week prior. It's like, of course the numbers go.
Yeah, you don't have it if you never got tested for it, which is the motto for Frosh Week at Western University. Okay, so
Cheers to Frosh.
I was listeing to.
Cheers to Western.
To our Frosh listeners.
Thank you, Western.
I
I know
think
you out there.
For doing your
Hashtag
thing,
Frosh
for
Week.
being there when we needed you.
so.
Hashtag Frosh Week 2020, 2021. It's gonna be on
Man.
Zoom, but that's okay. All right.
No, we got our buddies Anson and what's the name of their company? I'm excited to find out though. I want to host my dad's birthday on that platform. I forget the name. Just gotta get hold of Anson. Anson, call me.
Yo, listen to this. So I was listening to The Alchemist last night, and I want you to think about you listening to The Omens and then being like, because I know you had your passport out, you're in Costa Rica, Mexico. Do I stay? What do I do?
Where do I go?
And then you're gonna see the craziest shit that's gonna happen and take it this.
But he was able to understand one thing. Making a decision was only the beginning of things. When someone makes a decision, he is really diving into a strong current that will carry him to places he had never dreamed of when he first made the decision.
How did you just have that ready to go?
Yo,
Because I'm like, God.
that's so legit though.
Yeah.
I've been
Yeah.
I've been in this
I love
guy's
it.
presence for a long time, and that's one of the conversations he has with me all the time. Is that when you make a call, you have no idea where it's
No idea.
Absolutely. Also, that they have a great
I told you.
person who did the voice for the
The audio.
audiobook.
Erotic.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I picture him. It's
Yeah,
all.
yeah.
It's like the Dos Equis guy, the most interesting man in the world.
Yeah.
It literally,
Yeah.
like I picture
Yeah.
that guy
Story.
saying this fucking
The
story.
content plus his voice gave me
guy is
chills.
gravitas
I
for
was
sure.
like, God damn.
Yo, the content's lit because you can, in terms of like seeing an L and turning it into a W, you can see a time when you made a decision where when you made the decision, you can just obviously know you had no idea where it was gonna take you.
Mhm.
And then the crazy shit that happens, like
totally.
think about I ended up leaving a job after I left on the first. I went to the job on the first day, and I'm like, this isn't it. And I had turned down the company that we worked for, Fix, for in the running. And then I called Jonathan, and then I set that up, and I made that decision. And if I didn't, and I was just like, I got to get out of this. But think about now we're in Colombia, having drinks and listening to The Alchemist, talking.
Dude, if
Here,
you
it's
work
like
for that, if you work
you
for
don't
that,
know what the decisions you're gonna make.
if you work for that recruiting company,
Yeah.
I don't want to know what would happen.
So
I
I mean,
don't
I would
wanna
have
know.
ended up leaving. But anyway,
I almost worked for a recruiting company too. That was a fucking
yeah,
close
we want to
call.
work 14 hours a day.
Jesus Christ. Thank God I didn't go
We're in
there.
a
It's
September.
I remember talking to
Sorry.
Dan.
a way of the past, anyways.
I remember talking.
Sorry, go on.
I remember talking to Dan after his first phone call with Ian, and he was like, "Guy sounds like a wild Mustang."
First thing so I'm driving to work. I'm driving to work.
He's looking for more than you.
No, we're good. It's all good.
No, it's fucking lit.
But yeah, no, I was driving to work on my third day.
So
at
cool
the-
how we all know each other.
8:47. Jesus Christ. So I'm driving to work on the third day of the old job, and I'm doing my phone interview with Dan, and I'm like, "Hey man, how's it going?" And he's like, "Dan, you really are Jonathan Angie's friend." That was the first thing he said.
Yeah, we have the exact same amount of enthusiasm.
Yeah, we did a personality test, and we both ranked in the 89th percentile. Percentile.
The internet percentile.
89
It's the
percentile.
most relatable thing.
Yeah,
So
yo, you
relatable
could just
thing,
look
bro.
at that with like.
Yo, what's Abdu's bit about the remote control on his
It's hard to bring up.
man bun? Because
Oh.
he's like playing with this water bottle like it's a fucking remote control right now.
How do you masturbate? Put it in the first gear, second. No, I'm just kidding.
Never mind.
That's disgusting, guys. That's inappropriate. There's children watching.
We never
People
talk.
from
We
Foursome
never talk
watching.
about anything
Yeah.
inappropriate.
Still 17.
Yeah.
Podcast.
You know, we did we knew this trip. Like Jonathan and I have been traveling for about 6 months now, and like we knew it was gonna be crazier than we ever knew. But that quote that we just shared, like I brought up like a handful of times like before we left to Jonathan, and it just like it became so clear that this is gonna be crazier than I could ever imagine.
Yeah.
It's gonna live up to that, but then like shit's happened that's wilder than think about last night, boys. Like the fucking jacuzzi. It's fucking crazy. Last time.
Oh,
Cody
don't worry.
slip.
Hannah was here too.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounded funny.
That's so good.
That was wishful thinking.
Like
That's
three
exactly
of us
what-
in the hot
Yeah, that's an
jacuzzi last night.
Yeah. It's exactly what you guys want it to be, all right? Whatever you, we're gonna leave it open-ended there.
Open-ended. That's the problem.
Yeah, there's so
When
many
you do
times-
those fun times.
There's so many times on this trip where Ian and I look at each other and we like fist bump when we're just like, man, we're doing it, or we did it, or it's happening. Like we're here, man.
There were a lot of fist pumps last night for sure.
We had
A lot of fist
lot
bumps.
of fist bumps.
Hey.
Love the fist bump. Yo, honestly, my favorite thing is a good fist line.
Colombia 2021.
Fist lines with Cartagena. Fist line.
That's so good.
I don't know what we were saying.
Well, what's your?
I want you to send me whatever that
Yeah,
recording.
it's fucking.
I'm just gonna listen to that on repeat
It's
whenever I need
hard.
to. Yeah.
Yeah,
Just
I
that
mean,
10 seconds.
yeah, I mean,
it's on me.
like you guys, I mean, think about when you decided to come to Mexico and you didn't know if you were only going to be there for like a week and you ended up staying for a month and it like changed your philosophy on life.
Oh,
So like think about when you decide you quit your job and then you're like, I'm gonna go meet up with Jonathan and Ian in Mexico. And you had an idea, like, yeah, it'd be fun. You didn't know where it was gonna go.
I had no idea where it was gonna go. I didn't have like any intentions other than to relax
Yeah.
and to be myself again.
Yeah.
Whereas like when I was working, I felt like I was like getting away from myself. You know what I mean? I was like just like doing things I didn't want to do, doing work I didn't want to do, and like I wasn't good at it either, which didn't help.
Oh, yeah,
So
sure.
yeah, it was just like a time for me to find myself again, and it's so cool because you find yourself doing things you want to do, and then it just goes, you don't know where it's gonna go because you're just doing things you want to do in an area that you haven't done that before, and you just start trying out all these different things. But because you're actually happy and you're doing the things you want to do, you can actually say no to a lot of things because you don't feel like you have to, because you don't have to be anything you don't want to be. So you just focus on the things you actually want to be, the way you want to be, and now your circle of the realm of possibilities that you go down is just of a higher, overall on a higher, like better chance of just being better decisions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you're kind of just naturally carving out shitty ones because you don't have to be that way, and you kind of just get into this mindset. I'm like, I can just be whatever I want to be. I can actually just do what I want to do.
That reminds me of after Circle Up, I was reaching out to men and asking them, like, can you give me your honest feedback about the program and how it went? And one of the most beneficial conversations I had was with Mohsen. Because he basically,
So
like, everyone on the phone,
So
everyone
savage.
was like, yeah, Circle Up is sick. I love the experience. It's fucking awesome. And then I spoke to Mohsen. He's like, dude, it was great for these reasons, but these are the reasons why I got to say no and move on to something else, which is exactly what you said, which was, you know what you want. And he said to me, he's like, I'm looking for something more real estate specific. He said, I'm looking for something very niche. And then he went and he found that, which is the coolest part. But there's a lot of men who do the program and they say, this is exactly what I've been looking for.
Yeah, it's just like a level of magnification because it's like Mohsen's very serious about like doing well financially.
Yes.
So he has an extra motivation to get around more specific people in that realm.
Yeah.
Like if you were a bodybuilder, you don't want to go to the fucking group exercise session.
The Zumba class.
So like Mohsen going to a generic thing when he has that focus would be like a bodybuilder going to Zumba. And then
I just had a random question. I'm probably the only one who cares about this, but you planned initially on staying in Mexico for like a week, 2 weeks, I don't know.
Yeah.
And you decided to stay much longer.
Yeah.
How did that conversation go with Christina?
Because
How
you're
did that
right.
work
What a
out?
great question.
Oh yeah.
Wow, it's almost like exactly what you were curious about.
Stop trying to ask questions. Ask questions.
I think it was just an evolution, right? It wasn't like, hey, I'm staying for a month or something. And she was like, hey, that's great.
Give an inch, lose a foot. Am I right?
It was not like that.
Just wear a mask. That's all we need you to do.
No, it was not like that. It was a process of talking about it, staying in touch with each other, and just like going through it. And long story short, over the long run, like after that happening and coming to now, like our relationship is stronger, knowing that we can just communicate well, and she can do her own thing for a while, and I can do my own thing for a while, and we can be in separate places, and it's actually really good for us because it just helps in so many other things. Like we spend more time with our family that way. We focus on our own priorities, whereas sometimes we love spending so much time with each other that it actually takes away from our work, which is awesome because we love spending time with each other, but then we don't hit our goals. So it's just going to be a process of don't even try to have that conversation and have it like be all figured out in one go, right? It's like, well, I don't actually know all the answers that you're asking me in terms of how long I'm going to stay here. I'm just going to have to feel it out right now. And eventually I will come back. But like day to day, like every day we can talk. We can message each other. There's nothing like, stopping us from making the best of the situation. So let's do that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, I love that. I got a lot of ideas just like hearing you talk about that.
Spit them out.
One thing I would also say is like you can offer, for example, Cecilia to come down and see you. You know what I mean? That's what I always left the door open, and I always talk to Christina about it too. Like, hey, like if you can get over your health concerns, like I would love to have you here. It's not like I'm trying to get away from you. I'm just trying not to be in COVID Canada, lockdown, fucking cold, no
Fair
job, bullshit.
Exactly.
Nobody to see, nobody to hang out with.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to live happier, and you can come here too, and we'll both live super happy.
That's super helpful. Okay, I'm gonna keep that in mind. I think one of the big things too, and actually I don't even want to go just in case. I'll let you go.
Well, I think consider that you may want to share. Maybe don't.
There's some things I need to share with other people rather than just on this podcast.
Fair enough. This podcast isn't a confidential space, so any place where you would want it to be confidential wouldn't be.
I want a confidential, publicly facilitated.
How about this? I'm gonna say it, but can you beep out the next 30 seconds?
I don't know. Our podcast is pretty confidential.
So that's his way of saying
that's such a great way of saying you people. It's like such a it's like saying like making love. It's like, what are you talking about, really? But it's like
it's subtle.
Well, if you think about it, two things I was going to think of. The first thing that comes to mind around this conversation is I'll say the only thing I'll say is to, in my opinion, just honor the truth. Whatever the truth is, honor that. And then the second thing I would say is I was listening to a seminar a couple months ago where one of my mentors around relationships, specifically he was talking about marriage, he said the number one thing that's missing right now in marriages because of the pandemic is missing. No one misses each other anymore. They don't leave the house, so they're always there. And then months later, I did another seminar with him last week where he was talking about relationships again. And he said the women, because he did a seminar on the Saturday with 200 women, and then he did the seminar on the Sunday with 400 men. We had a huge turnout. He said the number one thing the women wanted to tell you men was you need to leave the house more.
Yo, damned if you do, damned if you don't. You leave the house, like, why are you out of the house? So what you know what I'm saying? That's some bullshit. That's like no matter what, bro.
Anyway, so all I was saying was Motion did mention, that's good. Motion did mention that it's motion. Yo, it's motion. No, he's got the motion in the ocean.
Motion in the ocean. Motion in the ocean, baby.
Mason
Motion
in the ocean.
That's pretty good, right?
So he mentioned it actually it could be a positive spin for their relationship. And so Sterling, the man that was doing the seminar was about relationships, did say, one thing that is missing is that they don't miss each other anymore. So having the break apart actually can bring you together closer.
Because Jonathan and I are married, that's why we're gonna next week.
It's a great idea.
Take probably somewhere between 1 and like probably 2 to 4 week range, most likely. Jonathan's gonna stay in Colombia. I'm gonna go to Guatemala, and then you guys might come meet me in a couple weeks. But otherwise, if we're gonna meet up and go to Peru, if we can, do ayahuasca.
Yeah, man.
Machu Picchu.
All we need to do is, man, I can't believe how difficult it is to find psychedelics in Cartagena.
So if you know anyone,
yeah,
this is a confidential space. The cops are not listening.
That was the number one. The second one was to thank you. The second one was that the biggest thing that's missing is missing. That's okay. To have that distance.
Yeah.
And then
I
the first
wrote
one
that
was
down when you
the
said
first
it.
one was to honor the truth, which was basically the theme I started the year with, which was very helpful. It has been helpful.
Distance makes the cock harder. Sorry, hard. Harder or something like that. I don't know. Freudian slip. Never mind.
There's a lot of COCK going on in there.
COCK? Oh.
Is that like hard jazz?
Can we
jazz
discuss
music
cock for a bit?
I'm just kidding.
We'll leave that. I guess.
Electric
Save that for
Forest,
the hot
LSD,
Yeah.
bathrooms in Electric Forest on LSD.
One thing that I would talk about the whole being in a relationship and traveling too. It's like when you can actually do that, it also teaches both of you what you want the relationship to be. It's like I can go travel and do the things that I want to do, and you're free to travel or do whatever it is we want to do, as long as there's obviously some rules and respect around that.
Yeah.
But it's just like giving the other person the freedom to actually just do what they want and not being codependent on each other, and knowing that you have enough of your own shit that you got going on, that like this partner is like not the main focus of your life. Your life is greater than just this partner, although they're pretty great. There's more to it than you just being with them. Don't get wrapped up in their identity. It's like be your own person. One of the things I love about Christina so much is she's definitely got her own thing going on, her own vibe, her own brand, her own work. That it makes things easier for sure.
That's honestly what you said resonates so hard.
Well
It's
said.
one of the things that I'm like Cecilia and I are battling with right now. Because like obviously I have my own thing going on, but like she I think she needs like maybe more projects or something like that, like something else to focus on besides like because at this point it is a little like
Most people do.
she's a little
She's not alone.
codependent. Yeah, so she's a little too dependent on me. So that's why she gets upset when I don't respond soon enough and shit like that. So it's like.
Yeah.
You need to be busy doing your own thing. You know?
Yeah.
So that's I think it's based on what you're saying right now. This is a conversation I would like to have.
And it'll be an evolution.
You heard it here first, folks.
Started off and like
Real
it's
chats.
it's just not going to work perfectly, and like there's no need to get to perfect right away. You know what I mean? It's just an evolution, and you learn about yourself and learn about each other, and things take time, and eventually, just like anything, everything turns out just fine and just as it's meant to. So.
My truth is to ask myself where I can take ownership, and there's like an element where when you're in a relationship, you're the only one that's like, paying her that much attention because she decided to be with you, right? And so people know that and they respect that, and they don't try to pursue pursue her. And so like now that you're engaged in this relationship because you decided to be there, it's like, well, are you really taking care of it? Because it's like there's you and there's her, and there's also this third identity, which is the relationship. And sometimes you got to do what's best for that. If you want it to work, like if you want to keep going. So it's like
one thing that you brought up earlier that
what can I do?
Yeah, one thing that you brought up earlier that I want to touch on when you were speaking about my involvement in the men's group and like my feedback from it and stuff. So what you talked about?
For leaving us.
He only wants positive feedback, right?
Quote unquote, I was like, it's just a bunch of sad boys.
Oh my god!
It's for mental health, bro.
That's so fucking real. That's exactly what it is.
Well,
You remember there was that one
part.
dude.
Never mind.
Sorry, no, okay, you.
Well, that was a confidential space, so just make sure you maintain confidentiality.
I would not say anyone's name. I just remember there was the one
So
dude.
my friend Brad Fisher, circle up.
I promise you, I do not remember anyone's name.
Social
I
insurance.
literally didn't get to know anybody. I don't know anyone's
I
name.
know Harrison. That's it. Harrison's not sad.
My dad was there.
Your dad's also dope. He's not
Ian
sad.
was there.
He into sad boy.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, we were listening to a lot of Juice
He's a
WRLD
sad
at the
boy
time.
in a Happy Boys clothing. All right.
We were listening to a ton of Juice WRLD at the time.
I'm a cock and a ball sex club. I'll just shut.
It's just a robe.
Oh,
the
lady,
ball.
sorry.
I would say, because there's a part of that. So you remember you said.
There was just the one dude I remember who was way too vocal around the fire chat. He just kept saying like stupid shit. And I remember you.
Gotta have one.
Yeah, and it was just like, why is this guy still talking? And we were trying to get him to be like, I'm pretty sure someone must have brought him.
Yeah,
Because they're like,
I know what you're talking.
yeah, we're like, okay, so like,
That's enough.
what are some challenges you're
Too far,
okay,
yeah.
I'll stop talking about it.
Long story short,
Bunch of sad boys.
I'll talk about it on my podcast.
Anyway, no, I was
Yeah,
saying.
do that.
I was saying
I know there's even less listeners over there, so we're
No,
cool.
it's fair. I respect
Less than
one of the
zero?
things I respect most about Jonathan is Jonathan sets boundaries, which I respect.
Yeah,
that's important.
Yeah, no, we're just getting into too many details about what actually happened and like confidentialities about what you took away from it. So if you took away that there's a bunch of sad boys, fair enough. But the details of what you saw, what you heard.
although I would hear from.
I did get more from it than just that.
I would say though, like
there was tons of.
I just have to say though,
folks.
I think there's got to be more to. I'm curious more to do around the feedback you had, because don't get me wrong, like sad boys is like a point, but I think like if you follow argumentation that a premise is that there's sad boys, the conclusion that that's bad, I would say is it doesn't.
Absolutely not. That was
just like a.
I did actually.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you asked that, because that's actually the point I wanted to make. Is like when my actual feedback was what you said is it wasn't the right place of focus for me. The right place of focus for me was real estate and somewhere in the financial realm. Is what I needed to focus on. And the reason why is because I identified for myself that there's multiple areas of life that I can work on, and sure, I can have all these goals, and I will, and I do, and I actively work on them. But my biggest focus was real estate and financial stuff, because I realized if I could get that one thing down, that would have a massive cascading effect on everything in my life. And if there was one thing that would make my life better, it would be improving my financial situation. And I narrowed that down, and then everything else I had to say no to. Like just, for example, men's group, putting your attention where it's not going to bring you the greatest amount of joy and the greatest amount of transformation. You're doing yourself a disservice there. So for some men, absolutely, that was like their, like time well spent. For me, I knew time well spent was going to be improving my financial situation. And that's the group that I sought to go after, and I found it, and it's been absolutely the right decision. And so what I would ask people, and I'll ask you guys, is like, find that one thing that's going to absolutely transform your life. Like, I know you got goals in all areas of your life, fitness, relationship, and all that, whatever. But what's that one thing that if you do it or get better at it, whatever, would transform your life? So for me in the past, it was changing my job, and now it's like recently improving my financial situation. So how about for you guys? What's the one thing that you need to do to like transform your life? Or
number one thing,
focus on?
The number one thing that transformed life is not needing it to. Like there's a first principle that like there needs to be, like don't remember, like from a certain lens, like push it, but then like getting outside of the like forgetting the goals and just being here. Like I was listening, Eckhart Tolle was talking about there's within our culture, there's this incessant striving for more, which is like this ego identity of like more, which like more is literally an abstract concept. From a development.
It's just something you visualize.
And we're obviously into like personal development, but it's like actually surrendering and I'd say just not needing not having to try. I think we get so burdened by what we think we should be doing that when you actually realize that there's nothing you have to do, then there's no pressure, and then you can just go after whatever you want.
Yeah, I would say that over the last couple of days, finishing up Joe Dispenza's Rewired program, I've said to myself that I think the number one thing that I could do to live the life that I've always wanted to live is to spend way more time meditating and way less time trying to do something, and just to let it arise from a state of calm and let it rise from a state of tranquility, let it rise from a state of being in the present moment.
As opposed to arising out of, I need to do something, what's like the closest at hand thing to like occupy myself.
Have you guys watched there was like a mini documentary series, I forget what it's called, I think it's like a Vox series on Netflix, and one of the episodes was just on meditation.
Yep.
You watched it?
I think Explained or whatever.
Yeah, Explained, exactly. Have you watched it? You should watch it. Have you watched it?
Nope.
If you want to really get into meditation, I highly recommend it.
All right, let's go through all the viewers.
Buddy,
have you watched it? Or we're done.
I'm in the game.
Okay.
I'm in the game.
So what the reason I bring it up is they look at it in the viewpoint of a beginner meditating and someone like a monk who's been obviously doing it like their
Decades.
entire lives, exactly. And they track the brain activity of both people, of like a beginner meditating and a monk meditating.
What show is this?
This is Explained.
It's
You've seen that. So they track the brain activity, and when you look at a beginner, there's like basically like nothing going on.
Probably alpha brainwaves.
Sure.
Beta.
Definitely beta, dude.
Beta.
Definitely.
No, they are.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
It's beta, alpha, theta. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh wait, if they're both meditating.
But basically, it's minimal brain activity.
Right.
When it's a beginner, then you look at when you look at actually a monk who's like been doing it for years and has been practicing it for so long, and they're a master of it. They've put in their 10,000 hours
They're
of
able to
meditation.
slow down their brainwaves.
Not even that. There's a shit ton of brain activity. It's almost like they're on a drug. Like it's to that point where when they meditate, it's like they're getting high.
Yeah, and the thing, it's the default mode network that you're talking about. The default mode network, which is all your conscious thinking. It's like you're being aware that you're thinking, and then like really thinking about that, and then that suppresses, which is something that happens during the psychedelic state, like doing psychedelics, and then with meditation as well.
Yeah, so Joe's rewired. The whole purpose of that program, which Mohsen and our friend Nian turned me on to, was that you can elicit that psychedelic state without any exogenous compounds, which is
That's the
things
goal.
outside of yourself, which is you can literally use your mind to create the feeling and to experience the gratitude and then to join the generous present moment,
Yeah,
which is the whole purpose.
one of the gurus, Ram Dass, he had like one of these famous gurus who was like enlightened, and Ram Dass, who's big in the pioneers of the psychedelic space, loved doing different cocktails of psychedelics and drugs to kind of access that like higher state. And he gave like 3 or 4 tabs, full doses of LSD to his guru, and it did nothing to him.
Nice.
Because he's just already, he's
Yeah.
literally like already in
That's
that
wild.
state where it
Yeah.
doesn't actually change it. And then, and I think
was
that's
already high on acid.
That's his secret. He's
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
not.
I'm not dosing.
I mean, that was the whole thing. Is like he said, you know, when you do a psychedelic or drug, chemical induced experience artificially, you have that high, but then when you have a high, you come down.
Yeah.
And he talked about how like his guru, like just staying up, which is to your point. Once you're able to activate that state, then you can just reinforce that, and then it's not dependent on the externals.
Yeah, we met some Chilean folks when we were in Santa Teresa. You weren't there that
Yeah.
night, but I went with a group of friends to this villa party, and we ended up staying there till like 5 a.m. watched the sunrise, and then took the ATV to the beach and just hung out there. So we hung out with these Chilean folks, and the girl that we were with, who we saw at the waterfall a few days later, she had this like really cool snake tattoo that she got after doing ayahuasca, and was saying that she like described it as like a difficult grandma doing ayahuasca, and she was saying like the less you have confronted your shadow, the less you've confronted your baggage, the less you've confronted the things that really like challenge you internally, the more difficult the ayahuasca is on you.
Yeah, you're resisting it.
The more it needs to smack you over the head and say, pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
And then the closer you are to understanding yourself, the easier the experience is.
And with the shadow, it's often where the light hasn't been shed on and you're not focusing on it. So the consciousness stuff that we're talking about is, you know, non-duality, oneness, you know, you're good and love. But then also realizing that if you're everything, then you're also all the negative things too. So it's like you are literally Hitler. No, it's like you were Hitler. So like that's the whole premise, is that you need to actually acknowledge the lesser parts of yourselves. And if you don't acknowledge it, it's just like putting shit under the rug. And then eventually it's going to pile up and be an issue if you haven't actually confronted it. Because what you suppress just comes up magnifold.
Which is interesting because we're planning on seeking out ayahuasca in Peru, and it'll be interesting to find out how she goes. We'll be able to post-trip report one day on that.
I'd like to think I'm feeling ready.
Post ayahuasca trip, how many big braids do you think you're gonna have after that?
Braids.
Yeah.
Yo,
I was asking if they had.
Jonathan currently has a braid that he in his hair that he just got. Was it yesterday?
It was on the beach.
It was
When
on the
that?
beach yesterday.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to the washroom, but yo, what is your guys' number one insight from psychedelics?
I wanted to close a loop.
Sure.
I wanted to close a loop on the point we created about sad boys, where
His defense is
it's not a defense. It's not a defense. It actually demonstrates what we're talking about.
It's a space for being sad. It's like you're being vulnerable. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I think the point is that we all have taken arrows on the battlefields of our lives.
Of course.
We've taken arrows, and the masculine identity that we seem to believe is the way it should be and the way it's supposed to be is deny, deflect, avoid. I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not going to look at it. I'm not going to confront it. And when we come to these spaces, it's the first time they've ever experienced that for a lot of people, where you can actually take the mask off and see all the wounds and all the spears and all the arrows and all the scrapes and then start to work on healing them together and being there for each other. And with the sad boy piece, Ian and I have talked about like how it'd be a really cool way to end the Circle Up book, where the whole premise of the book is like, whatever you're going through, you don't need to go through alone. It's don't man up, circle up. Come here. It's a space for you to be taken care of and to take care of other men. And by working on myself, it actually improves the community around me and vice versa. And so everyone's growing together. But there's also an element where it's like, yeah, don't man up, circle up, but also you need to fucking man up.
Yeah. There's some situations like that. It's like, yeah, it was yesterday. We had to wake up early. 2 days ago, I woke up from a nap and we were going to go to this hike. And I was like telling Abdu how tired he was. And he's like, yeah, it's basically just a symptom of you being a bitch. And I was like, you know, that's fair. And then I came. And I also came to the hike.
Oh man! Yeah, we can talk about that car ride to the beach yesterday as like a how to have no problem attitude and why I really like spending time with you guys. But so that was what I mean about that point where it's like, yeah, they are, and also that's like okay. So it's like, can you come to a space where where it's totally confidential and you talk about anything and be a side boy? Yes, because that's the purpose and that's why we designed it, is for you to actually talk about your experience and what you've been going through, and to be able to accept it, to heal from it, and to move on. Because the whole point of the men's circle and the men's team and Circle Up is to get out of your head and out of doubt and into action. The arrows cause a lot of doubt. You've been injured on the battlefield, now you're hesitating when you go back onto the battlefield. So you got to clean it up and then go back and get out there. But also at the end of the day, it's like you got to get, like, if you want to experience what it is to live your full life, you need to get back on the battlefield. You need to be on the court. You can't be on the bench and experience life fully. So I totally agree with what I'm saying, is they should, the reason we're there is for them to be able to man up too. It's like, don't man up, but also man up, you know?
Yeah.
So it's the paradox. It's it rises mutually. But I'm glad you're honest. So thank you.
Yeah, it makes sense that there's times when something's good advice and there's times when it's not. It's like, you should drink water. But it's like when someone's drowning, that's bad advice. Yeah. So it's just like, it depends on the context. So there's time. I think the point of that because it's been generalized in the mental health space, like never, like don't man up. It's like, yes, because so many times manning up, quote unquote, isn't the right course of events. But when you're tired and you don't want to go for a walk with your friends, like maybe you should don't be a bitch.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's just like, yeah, maybe don't be a bitch is bad advice when you're like going through something serious, but I think sometimes it's good advice.
That's exactly
that's what
it's like. Basically, don't man up is the first chapter of the book, and man up is the chapter of the last.
Oh, there you
last
go.
Because it's like both.
That's
it's
nice.
both.
I like that.
Anyway, so Circle Up book coming to you soon. Appreciate you guys. Purchase the copy.
Do we want to finish on the story from going to the beach yesterday?
Yeah, sure.
Do we want to have something symbolic to act as the story that we're going to finish on?
Problematic.
I don't need to do
Remember, this is why we got a place with so many balconies. So
Yo,
Yeah,
that's
it has
literally the
options.
reason we got the balconies.
we have options. We're like, do we want to throw Ian off this one today?
Which one? do
Hey
you
man,
wanna
you
know?
can't spell balconies without BAL and C
Val?
separately. Anyway, don't worry. Sometimes
Balsy. Balsy.
is honestly it
Ballsy.
was too subtle for your guys' fucking intellectual capacity.
All right, so I can start telling a story.
Yeah,
And
Abby, you're a good storyteller. Talk about it.
Oh, see, you never want to introduce someone that way because now everyone listening is like, oh yeah, let's see it, prove it.
I'm not talking about like.
So start by being like,
I'm not
Abby
talking
should start
about,
telling
like,
about
Abby's-
Since when have you had a
Abuse.
problem the crowd being like, let's see it? Like that's usually your cue.
No, I want them to introduce me.
Let's
like,
see
this
it.
guy fucking sucks.
Abdu has,
Bring it back,
Abdu has a lot of
dude.
work to do. He's still an amateur comic. Okay.
I've been paid once, no, twice to perform so far.
Jeez.
All right, that's
Wow.
right.
That's-
Professional.
I'm happy to hear that.
Thank you. So what's the name of the beach? Santa Clara. Was the
Not at all.
Santa
No.
Playa Blanca.
Playa
Baru.
Blanca. Too many fucking
Baru.
names.
You thought you mixed up Playa Blanca with Tenerife.
And I already forgot the name of the beach. It doesn't even matter. We're going. So we routed our. We basically found we got Uber, and the Uber showed up, and he was like, "If I'm taking you to this beach, I'm gonna need much more money."
That doesn't make any sense.
And we're like, okay, we'll give you like 10 pesos more or whatever. And he's like, no. So we're like, okay, fuck it. And then that's one like a million taxi drivers are
So
just
many
hurting
all
us.
over the place.
So we're so fucking surrounded, and they're all like, oh, we'll take you there, whatever.
I
And
feel like a 15-year-old girl on TikTok out here.
for real. But we chose one guy, and he was driving us there. We were driving for fucking ever. And at the same time, I get a message from one of our friends. He's like, "Yeah, this is the spot we're going to," and we had already passed
Different
that spot by like a long shot. So I was like,
15 minutes at least.
So exactly. So I was like concerned. We were concerned. It's like, okay, he's going there. We're going this way. Where the fuck are we going? Where are we headed? And then it got worse when we we're on like dirt roads basically, right? And we're surrounded by random dudes in motorcycles and random guys literally jumping in front of the taxi.
Right
like
onto the
literally
street.
groups, exactly.
Multiple people, all like, stop. It's like,
It's like,
what am I gonna
wait.
do? Hit this guy?
Wait, let me scam you. Wait. They're like literally all just looking for an opportunity
So
to sell you something or scam you or whatever it might be, right? It's fucking ridiculous. So we at one point it feels like the taxi is almost a part of the racket because he actually stops for these people. Like he's not just going through it.
Well, how? I mean,
So it's
was
like
he gonna run
fucking.
them over?
So it's, at that point, it's just like go. No, he's like
They were
waiting to talk to them,
car.
and we were just like, just go,
And he
just
wouldn't
go.
listen.
He wouldn't listen exactly. So
There was
it's
also
like,
a language barrier as well.
I mean, when we're all yelling and saying and doing this,
Maybe this
That's
means like
really-
in Spanish. this
Vamos,
means golazo.
vamos,
Yeah.
vamos,
yeah,
vamos.
we're in. Whatever they're selling, we're in.
Don't move.
So we get past two groups of people who are like literally jumping in front of our car, and we suddenly hit a security checkpoint, and it's the military. It's a Colombian military,
Yeah.
just fucking chilling there.
Very sketchy.
There's a bunch of them. A bunch of them have like
Massive guns.
they have
Assault rifles.
guns on their chests, and they're talking to the taxi driver.
Real man.
And then one of the army guys like tries opening the door, it's locked, so the taxi unlocks it, and then he opens the door.
Close inside, right?
Yeah,
Stairs
goes
and
inside.
Bosun
And
Adnan.
literally just stares at us, and we're just trying to be like, no problem attitude, just like thumbs
Stare
up.
back at him.
Like, hey,
I know, I was just like this.
Who's
I was just
gonna
like-
blink first? or
exactly.
something?
It's like, what is this guy waiting for? Is he
Yeah.
like hoping that we crash or
Just
some
like,
shit?
Ah,
Like, oh my god,
I
look.
got the drugs.
Oh, it's in the trunk. Just open the trunk. It's in there. It wasn't not mine. It's not mine.
Imagine being so timid that you crack.
Seriously,
Yeah.
it was so.
All right, take me.
This guy, honestly, I think he was just checking us out. I was showing him a lot of leg, so I
Yeah.
think he was.
I
into
told
there.
the driver we're Canadians. He's like, yeah, they're Canadian. They don't speak Spanish. I was like, I'm not going to say any Spanish. I'm not going to say a single word.
There you
Actually,
go.
That's the best thing to
There
do.
you go. And
It's called. What is happening?
no habla español.
No,
Español.
No Spanish.
No Spanish. No Spanish, dude. I don't speak taco.
Bro, you're gonna eat so many tacos and Playa Blanca.
I can't wait.
So many.
I don't speak taco.
And they're
I eat
delicious
taco.
and cheap. Oh.
So we get through the security checkpoint, and that was like such bad juju. We're like, that's fucked
Seriously.
up. and then immediately turns on like the bumpiest dirt road, and it felt like we were in a fucking like bumper car or like off-roading. Like
beside us,
surrounded by
following
those
us?
guys.
motorcycles following us.
cars just going up and down, just flying, and of course, right at that moment, all our phones lose all service, 100% service,
Instantaneously
all
gone.
gone. And immediately we're all at the same time like, this cannot be the way. We had to cross a military checkpoint. We were being chased by these motorcycle people. This fucked up dirt road. Like, who the fuck is going to the beach? This super mainstream popular beach. Who's getting there?
Trying to get
dirt
through
road?
it was like trying to being like one of those like buffalo that go through the crocodile waters, or like a child actor getting through an audition in Hollywood.
Because he is trying to get to the other side, but it's like, are you sure this is the best way? Because we were trying to get to the other side. We didn't know that, but it's funny because all of the omens said to me to go back.
Yeah.
So
So
that
that
time they did, yeah.
exactly, that's true. And
Sometimes we misread the omens.
sometimes we misread the omens. To me, the lesson I've learned in the past is to not doubt the taxi driver, because they know the area, they know where they're taking you. So just trust them. Like,
As long as you
That
trust
could
them.
also be bad advice.
but that's
It goes both ways.
If
it
they're-
goes both ways. But also, the only reason we found that club is because your friends, like the late
They
night
just
league
like
club,
asking
they
the
ask
drivers,
they literally ask the
locals,
taxi driver.
It's
"Hey,
like the
let's
man
go
up,
to
don't
this
man
club."
up
But
thing.
that's
They
what
know,
I was
they know the
to.
local spots. They know they're gonna know where to take you. They're gonna know the right spot. And when it comes down to it, if they take us to the wrong spot, we're not gonna fucking pay them. So they're gonna want to take us to the right spot.
Well, that just reminds me of the paradox. We were talking about man up, don't man up, like you said just now. But
Good
it's also
advice
like,
to listen to foreign taxi drivers, and there's times not to trust them.
and it's also like sometimes don't spend all your time planning, but you gotta plan. So they arrive at the same time.
So
It's like you don't have to try, but like you should try something.
So we questioned the omens too much. We decided we stopped the Uber, the taxi, told them to turn around.
Another good bit of
Go back the
information
other way.
is what Abdu said about a friend saying it was a different spot too. So we got that picture like this isn't the spot. It's not where they're
Uber is
going.
saying one thing,
Let's turn
and then
around.
this taxi is saying another thing. So we decided to try going to the other spot. We're driving for another
Saw a cow
15,
trying to
20
fuck another
minutes.
cow.
We had to go the other
Exactly.
way.
So now this is when we realized, oh, we're probably going the wrong direction. We get on a dirt road that's even worse than the previous one.
Another one.
Yeah, we saw Bill
find,
Cosby.
we
Way
find
worse.
exactly way worse. We find more. There's more there's new. There's literally one guy who's like starts yelling at us, and then he gets on his motorcycle and starts chasing us. So another one. It's literally Colombia is just a constant chasing, whether it's on foot or in the car or whatever.
It's like a disagreeable aggressiveness.
Exactly. And then we got on the dirt road, and once we got on the dirt road, that's when we see we're like, this seems wrong, and that's when we see like 4 cows in front of us, and we're like, okay, this has got to be wrong.
I remember from the
And
back, Mosin's like, "There's no way this is the place. There's fucking cows over there."
Exactly.
There's no way, dude.
And then one of the cows,
Bill Cosby.
one of the cows just jumps
Bill
up.
Cosby.
Just shut up, right? Just one of the cows jumps onto the other cow, and literally his dick fully erect, pops out of nowhere, just whoosh. And then the female cow just fucking dodges, just like swerves. And,
Not today.
Nope,
Not
exactly.
today, brother. The logistics are off. There's a car coming at us right now.
Exactly.
I'm pretty
It's
sure
not
the
the
cow
right
put a
time.
drug in the one's cow tail.
The other cow is like, oh, it's distracted. The car's coming now. Like, it's probably strategic.
Oh shit!
It's probably strategic.
Wow.
So that's when we were like, okay,
That's biology.
this is fucked, and we were like, okay, fuck it, let's just trust what the taxi said before. We
And
went
he
back.
had a picture.
It was only like 100 meters
Yeah,
farther.
It
further.
was so close.
It was so close from where we initially were.
Past
where
the
we stopped
military
before.
checkpoint, just beyond the dirt road bit where we were sketched out by like how far.
Yo, we
Yeah,
just
we
talked.
found it.
We just talked about how we made a mistake and we listened to the omens incorrectly. I disagree, because if we didn't listen to the omen of turning around, we would have never stumbled upon Bill Cosby. My TED Talk.
Okay,
I
where
agree.
I'm going,
I agree.
where I was
And
actually
we never
going
would
with
have
this
met
one too.
that group of people, those Colombian folks.
Exactly. So once we got to the spot, we got there later than we wanted, but we saw a group of 4 Colombians, and they spoke English too, which is like so fucking rare from
Uncommon.
what we've seen. It's so uncommon here. Maybe it's more common in the Medellin or something.
Yeah, I said, "How'd you learn?" They just said we taught ourselves. They were watching movies and listening to English
Let's
rap.
go.
Yeah,
That's
so
amazing.
think about that. So we decided to go back, and when you make a decision, you really don't know where it's going to take you.
So in the end, it worked out that we got to meet these people. They brought us to their friends on the beach. We got to hang out with actual Colombians.
wear a
which
dope
is
hat.
amazing.
They actually
Yeah.
spoke English too a
They
bit.
actually spoke English.
They
We
had
got-
goggles.
we
They
went
knew where to
snorkeling
go.
with them.
They knew where to go
They knew
snorkeling.
where to go snorkeling. We got to
Right there in
snorkel
the
with
water.
them. One of them,
You see that in the water? Go in.
That's good advice.
imagine I'm face first in some sand. I'm like, what?
I don't see
Dude, it's
shit.
summer the whole time.
I see shit.
Snorkeling sucks,
How I do
dude.
this.
Yeah. But yeah, we got to meet the Colombian crew and
Interesting experience.
yeah. So in the end, we had a great beach day though.
Yeah, that was a good.
Yeah, that was beautiful. And
You
Hannah and
voted
Nate
that.
showed up.
Yeah, locked down on
What
the
did you
boat.
get? Yeah,
Great.
I saved your crypto.
You saved by a fucking million.
Guy was making trades, crypto trades,
Nice.
hammered in the boat.
Rappy.
Yeah, we ordered fried chicken. Thanks for that. I had a piece. It was pretty.
Oh yeah, we took a boat ride. We managed to start taking a taxi back, which the taxi driver was not happy about. We instead got a boat ride, also from Colombians who spoke English, and so we got to meet them, got the boat ride back, and Mohsen was just somehow was on another level and ordered a bucket of fried
There wasn't
chicken.
enough water. That was the challenge.
Yeah,
there
The
was
sun
not
is
enough
hot and there wasn't enough water.
Where's the water?
technically. But yeah, overall, great.
Trying to
Super
rushing
great.
the experience.
The biggest theme for me is typically always is like just the more no problem attitude the people you hang out with, the more fun you have.
For reals.
Because it just creates the more problem attitude you have of like finding problems and everything, the more stress you create.
Yeah.
It all works out pretty
It's
well.
like looking for L's. It's like, well, if you don't look for L's, they're not there. You know what I mean?
Because L's, as we said, like L's it's not an actual thing.
It's an identification of the thing.
Yeah.
It's a judgment of the thing.
An
You don't have
interpretation.
that judgment and that constant judgment. then
And
you're good.
alchemy is shifting your interpretation from how we started this alchemy.
Yeah.
Alchemist.
Yeah.
It's shifting your interpretation of what you had categorized as a loss, and then you can categorize it for a win, or you can just transcend winning and losing.
I think all of us.
That being said, it's not like we transcended losing. Like for a while, we were not feeling good about what we were like going back and forth, all
Yeah,
the fucking
yeah,
all
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
well, we're not going
once
to be
you-
emotionless.
Exactly, but we still
Such a good
handled it
point.
well. We did the best that we could with this shitty situation that we put ourselves in.
Yeah.
But overall,
True.
the key is not to dwell on the fact that we fucked up and just enjoy the time that we had on the beach, as short as it was.
I think what we do well is like all of us are adventurous guys, meaning that we try new things, we venture into the unknown, and having done that so much in our lives, we understand that things are not going to go perfectly, nor would we even want them to. Life wouldn't even be that interesting that way if everything would work out all the time. You know what I mean? It wouldn't be that fun actually.
Yeah.
It's the joy of getting to the beach was more intense because of the bullshit we went through right before
True.
getting to the beach.
Yeah.
So it's just like part of the experience, and that's internalized in us. We know that there's something better coming. That I don't have to linger on negative thoughts on this.
True.
I'm gonna focus on being here and now,
Yeah.
and just getting excited for what's about to come.
Yeah.
And that's it.
In the grand scheme of things, it's like, yeah, we might have lost like 45 minutes to like an hour
Yeah.
on the beach.
Eyes on the
But we
prize.
still had exactly.
Named
We
this
still have
story,
3
hello.
hours. Exactly. We still have 3 hours.
Yeah.
At least 3 hours on the beach.
Definitely wasn't a loss.
And there's also an element of Ian and I talk a lot on the show about you can't increase your pleasure without increasing your pain.
Yeah.
And when you increase your pain, you increase your pleasure. It's like by experiencing what we did and then when we got to the beach, we said to ourselves before we even got out of the car, we're gonna have to go extra hard so we can make up for the time we lost. So that was like infusing an illusion of even enjoying ourselves even more because we decided to. And then how much cooler was the boat ride home
That was
versus
dope.
driving?
It was
And
great.
if we did the boat both ways, it wouldn't have been as like the contrast of the experience we had versus the
True.
gliding through the water as the sun was setting in the distance.
It made the boat ride that much nicer.
It made it because it was just like, oh, we went through all that bullshit this morning. Well, was it really
Sun
bullshit or was it setting you up?
2:30 p.m. I'm just kidding.
It was hot outside. It's hot outside.
Yeah, for the people that don't know, the beaches close at 2.
Oh
so
yeah,
the sun
shit.
setting at
Long,
2:30.
We stuck around longer than we
I
were
was pretty
supposed to. Though, so
The sun was setting. In my
The sun was setting.
The story I was telling myself is I'm
He put
on this boat and it's fucking just like in the sun setting.
He just had 3 pairs. He was just squinting and had 3 pairs of sunglasses.
I literally just got I had 3 pairs of sunglasses and I just got this Rasta braid. because we're on the Caribbean and I know what it feels like to be Colombian.
Pretty sure that's culture appropriation.
Oh yeah.
You think so?
Braids.
Yeah, pretty sure.
People yesterday asked me how long have I lived in Cartagena because they like figured I was Colombian. So
That's nice.
You pass for Colombian.
You can pass
Yeah.
for Colombia.
I'm getting there.
I don't know if wait, they asked you how long you were in Cartagena, not that.
No, they were like,
Colombia.
no. They're like, I was like, no, I don't live here. Like, okay, how about in Colombia? So, it seemed to me like they're asking me.
No, they thought you were an expat. I'm sorry, dude. I'm gonna take that away from you. That,
Yeah,
I'm
that's
gonna take that
actually
away from you.
Yeah, it's gone.
That's actually probably.
Born and raised.
Fair enough.
This calls it. I call bullshit.
They saw that, bro. The
I
braid
don't
isn't that
remember-
powerful.
I don't-
They don't look at one braid and like, oh
Oh,
shit,
he's got
one of us.
Like, what you don't know about this braid is it's siege.
Yo, actually, the funniest bullshit call I've ever heard. It was Mark Manson, who's the author of The Subtle Art of
Oh,
Not
with
Giving a
Jordan?
Fuck, and he did a podcast with Jordan Peterson.
Nice.
And Jordan Peterson and his daughter asked Mark Manson, well, what should you give a fuck about then? And then Mark Manson started saying, oh, my goal isn't to like imbue my values on or print my values on my readers. I let them decide what they want. And Jordan Peterson's like, well, that's bullshit. He's like, of course you are. Everything you're saying in the book is trying to convey a certain viewpoint of life. And then Mark Manson actually was like, yeah, actually, I gave you my stock answer, but like, yeah, you're right. Which is pretty honest. That I found it was pretty
that's
impressive.
tough.
It was pretty impressive that he actually, but he said a little bit more.
At least
He's
he-
like, you
at
know what?
least he did it.
Yeah, he didn't like get defensive or something.
Yeah.
And it was also just
You
like,
can't get lost in your stock answers.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's
It
got called
sounds-
out.
it Sounds
But
right.
there's so many
That's a
stock
good point.
answers that we have.
Well,
Like we have so many
True.
assumed things. Like I would say the equivalent of that is like I don't like self-help. It's like you probably read some shitty books. You know what I mean?
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, like I bet if you picked up the first 5, like, well,
Self-help for me is life experiences. And,
yes, but if someone's had, Jim Rohn would say, if some guy, one book could save you 5 years of life experiences. Because one person who's done this thing and they synthesize it and they sell it to you for $20 and you're like, it's $20 and I got to read it. It's going to give me that much value. Seems too good to
Yeah,
be true, but
but
it isn't.
I'm the kind of person who, like,
Who's
I
saying
think
that?
most people are like this actually. You will read a book 1 year, read it 5 years later, and you're going to gain different lessons from it because you've actually lived certain life experiences that you can pull from it.
That's why
So
I
it all
love
comes
the
down to
Alchemist
like
over
you.
the years, dude.
So it's like I'm pulling the lessons that I almost already know, but it's like reinforcing the lessons that I've learned in the last 5 years. So that's kind of my way of thinking.
There's
So
like-
if I read a book when I'm 17 and like 7 most effective habits of a whatever.
I
If I-
like the people.
Yes, yeah, there you go. And if I read that, I remember trying to read that and being like, I don't understand.
Yeah, I didn't. I
don't
personally,
get it.
I remember reading that.
Maybe if I read it now, maybe it'll resonate.
Yeah,
But
I just mean I think there's like books that are non-fiction or non-novels that aren't like the like Tony Robbins. I think what you're getting at, like I've moved away from like the stereotypical broadcasted self-help.
Yeah.
Like we are
Unleashing the
self-help,
giant.
like all that. Like I've kind of moved away from that, but
Yeah.
I think I'm just like a low-hanging fruit, and there's some
Yeah.
philosophy and some shit that you learn
It-
that like if you like The Alchemist, you would read it.
Here's the thing though. Why do you read those books?
Because
down to it.
I can, because it allows me to shape my philosophy, which is my lens of a world, in a way that serves me, makes me feel better, do better, happier, more at peace.
So you're looking for something different when you read than when I read. When I read, I'm looking to enjoy myself. I want to enjoy.
Entertainment.
I'm looking for entertainment. I want to be able to enjoy
Same.
what I'm reading. So for me, reading those books, I don't enjoy them. I would much rather read a book like The Hobbit that's literally just crafted
Yeah.
for your enjoyment.
I would recommend both. I've read The Hobbit, got the Alice in Wonderland,
Yeah,
got the
here's the
Alchemist.
thing. It comes back to what we were talking before. Mosin, the circle of thing wasn't for him. He's looking for something different.
Well, it
For
was
me, when
for
it comes
him,
to
but
reading-
it wasn't for him. You know what I mean? Help them find out that it wasn't for him, so it wasn't. For them.
Yeah, so I've read self-help books to realize that they're not for me. And I
You might want to revisit though every once in a while just to see if you've changed.
I agree.
So
I
you guys are trying to imprint your way of thinking.
No,
on me,
I
right?
constantly change. I'm constantly
Pushy
changing.
motherfuckers. No, I'm
Well,
just
think
kidding.
about it this way: it's like I never read fiction, and then he
Yeah.
was like, "You should read some fiction," and I was like, "No, I don't." And I identified.
He
with
literally
not
said to
reading
me, he's like,
fiction.
I don't like, no.
Identified with not reading it.
Yeah.
Like, I only read things that make me grow right away, tangibly happen.
Which is funny because you guys were on the exact opposite opinion on this exact same thing. I'm trying to flip it the other way.
Yeah. So, I mean, just being open-minded to reading some great literature. I read
All I'm
Stephen
saying, yeah,
King, and Stephen King was awesome. And then I read Needful Things is an incredible
I'm just
book.
saying, if you read like 5 or 10 pages, so like 10 minutes of your life of Seneca, I think you'd find that. I think you might be like, well,
Yeah, if you got through page 13 and you didn't have some insight, then I would be surprised.
Sure. I think you'll find like really good self-help books, like the quote that you just heard in from The Alchemist. It's like that. Yeah. It's wildly entertaining, inspiring.
But the reason I like
told with a story rather than just as here's some facts. You know?
that's why I like The Alchemist. It's an actual story. It's an actual
It's a
story.
fable.
I think there's a faulty premise on this
I
argument.
want a
right
hybrid.
now,
I want the hybrid.
But the hybrid is a hybrid of doing a hybrid and then the different ones, and then they mesh together. So it's not. I'm not trying to convince you that nonfiction is better than fiction. If I could only read fiction,
I wouldn't say that.
I'm just saying they even out in different ways. So it's like one meal you're trying to eat an avocado salad, and the other meal you eat fried chicken. So it's like you eat food for more than one purpose in different experiences. So it's like most of the time, like I understand, like from a ratio standpoint, like maybe 9 out of 10 books are fiction.
Let me and make an analogy in the comparison to consuming drugs, because like as an example, you read the fiction for a specific outcome or like a specific thing you're interested in. Well, you would smoke weed for doing something specific, or you could drink and that would give you a different experience. So it's like an altered state of consciousness. Well, you're literally peeking into the thoughts of a specific person. And so when you peek into the thoughts of Paulo Coelho, when you're reading The Alchemist and it's the story, it's like you're getting the curated experience he's trying to design for you. But when you read Seneca as an example, or if you read Alan Watts, or if you read Jim Rohn, you're just getting an insight into how does this person think about the world. And if you're interested in specific people, like as an example, you said Conan O'Brien, was that who you're listening to?
Yeah.
His podcast? So you were saying like he's super funny.
He's fucking
You're saying he's super funny.
He might be one of the funniest people on earth.
And so it's like so I actually agree in terms of like who you pay attention to and you spend time with. You actually get a glance into the way they look at the world, the way their brain works. And so you can tap into basically anyone's.
I think from
anyone's,
what you're saying, from a low-hanging fruit for everyone, I agree that, like, for example, if you're a bodybuilder, maybe everyone shouldn't be a bodybuilder, but you're like, everyone should exercise. So I think it would be too much for what people would like if everyone's not going to want to read as much philosophy as I do. But I think in terms of, Mosin asked, what's one thing you could do that would be like low-hanging fruit green space that could change everything? It's like, think like that quote from The Alchemist is philosophy. Like that's a metaphor of explaining.
But here's the thing: I don't enjoy a book when it's literally just focusing on that. I like it to surprise me.
It just doesn't get through to you.
Yeah, it doesn't get through to me.
And that's totally fair to say.
Especially when it's so much of it is just like pie in the sky. There's so much like
and that's totally fair. It's also crazy to think that self-development books are the only way to learn about self-development.
No, they're not.
So it's like I have no issues with you not reading them.
Alan
I think you're doing very well in the realm of self-development without reading any of those books. Personally, I don't even read too many self-development books anymore. I just, over the years, for one, once you're into self-development, you hear a lot of the same patterns. Not to say like you've internalized them and you're perfect now.
Yeah.
But I'm not even entertained by most of them anymore unless there's something where I really don't know. For example, like some of the stuff we're experienced with Alan Watts. That was like thinking in ways I had not thought before. So that's really the value in life, is whether it's coming from a book or it's coming from somewhere else, is like what's you don't know what you don't know. So what might as well venture into it and see what it's like, and in some way it's gonna develop you. It might be directly self-help, or it might be The Alchemist or something else.
So if I was to read one short self-help book, what do you guys think?
Seneca on the Shortness of Life is 35 pages.
If I had to say like the shortest one that you can finish in literally a few hours, Seneca.
39 pages.
I'm a slow reader also, which is
I'm
why
surprised
I
you
like
said
short
that.
books.
I think you were going to say James Allen as a main thinker.
That's too like on the. It's good, but I'd say this is a little bit more like comprehensive.
But having
It's
said
more
that, dude, there's so many
man.
categories that like I wouldn't ask myself what's the shortest book. I'd probably ask like what's the most impactful self-help book that you would recommend for this topic. Because there's like self-help books for like worrying.
I know, but I want to taste.
Self-help books.
Okay.
I want to taste a self-help.
say-
If I like it, then I'll.
But is there? I'm wondering if there's like any realm of self-development that you.
Here
think
is
would
one.
be
As a
really
man
good.
thinketh, what I can
Are you
do.
looking
So
for
it's,
philosophy, practicality, career?
I have a couple ideas about this.
just, I was gonna
Mindset.
say the practicality standpoint, as Jonathan brought up what he thought I was gonna say, as a man thinketh. So it's there's 30. It's a book, and it has a morning paragraph and a night paragraph. So it's just 2 paragraphs a day for 30 days, and it's like a sequential order of like philosophical thought, like moving towards that you're creating your reality through your thoughts. And then if you want to like do things well, then you need to like write yourself, and from like an internal standpoint. And it's I've read it probably 20 times, like 18 times, because you read it for a month and then you can start over. But I read it for like a year and a half prior to us leaving on our trip, and it was one of the things for me to be able to like just click all the things together and make it happen.
What's it called, sir?
As a man thinketh, James Allen.
On the other note of like self-development, right? Like just like how I was saying, self-development books are not the only place to learn about self-development. So the question is, why are you reading self-development books? Are you trying to actually self-develop? If you are, that's great. Then is self-development books the number one way you could develop? Or could you just actually do the thing that you need to develop at in some other way, whether it's like practicing comedy rather than reading a book about comedy?
I also,
You know what I mean?
I agree, and I would say
So the only
hanging out with the
self-books-
person as well.
Okay, so it's a lie. I have read self-help books, but they're comedy books. So,
Yeah.
so that,
Do you
that
talk
is
funny?
self-help books.
I realized because of that book that I don't.
No, you do. You do. You got a lot.
Is that what the
I had to
Irish
read
guy?
the book. I had to read
It
the
is
book
the Irish guy.
Yeah, I read that one
knew
too.
that I didn't talk funny. I would say to that point about like doing the thing to help you improve it. It's also like hanging out with the person that's already good at it. And
Yeah.
Just like I remember being on a
Yeah.
podcast last week. I did a podcast on the Circle Up show, interviewing Eric Windler from Jack.org, who's the founder of Jack.org. His son took his life when he was going to school and university at Queen's University, and we were talking about mental health and how to be there for yourself and others. And he was saying to me at one point, he's like, "You're so great with quotes, Jonathan." And I said to myself, like, well, I hang out with basically like a poet philosopher every single day, and so I'm just like exposed to it, and it's like become part of who I am, and it's just like more effortless than anything at this point, because like I said, it's become
Sharpening the saw axe all day.
and so when you go into these situations, it's like you're well prepared. You got a sharp sword and a sharp axe. And so just like what you were saying, if you want to self-develop, like just reading the book isn't the only way to do it.
Of course.
Hang out with a philosopher, poet, artist, rapper,
It gets you asking yourself the question, like,
brainchild, mystic, $50 million man. When you hang out with a $50 million man, you're gonna make millions.
absolutely. I was gonna say something, and I'm trying to remember what it
That
was
weed
now.
hit.
Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
it.
The weed hit.
The
Well,
weed,
this was-
nicotine,
the-
alcohol, shot of tequila.
Guy,
a beer,
literally this
just
guy
like-
like 2 hours ago was like, "I'm done partying on
I'm
this trip."
done.
Yeah.
Well, we do need to
Why
we
you
need
guys
to give
didn't tell me
ourselves a
about
break
the
so that we can enjoy the
This is still a
departure.
slow day.
That being said, no, today is for sure. I'd be down to go to the pool one more time. That being said,
6, it just closed.
so the reason we wanted to do this part 2 is because Abdu's leaving tomorrow. He's gonna head to Mexico. 3 of us are gonna keep hanging out. I think you're gonna stick around at least till May 7th, Mosin.
Definitely.
We got this dope apartment.
I
the
can't
entire-
read the stuff apartment.
got the
I don't think
entire-
it's-
No, why would you?
We got the entire
This
fifth
place is
floor
nuts.
of oceanfront property on the Caribbean Sea here in Cartagena. 8 balconies. See the sunset every night. There's a pool on the property. We're gonna stick it around until May 7th. And massive TV. We were watching hilarious music videos last night, enjoying that experience. Abdu, you're gonna go to Mexico, and the boys and I are gonna stick in Cartagena. Ian, what's your plan after you're gonna go to
Going to
Guatemala?
Guatemala.
This is
Yeah,
cool.
I'm
Yo,
gonna
this
swing.
is like we're all going to a different place basically. Except most of the time. So you're gonna go to Guatemala. You're gonna come to Medellin. What do you think? What do you gonna do?
Probably.
So
Ah,
probably
dude.
gonna go to Medellin together.
Yeah.
We're gonna go back
Nothing
to
better
one
to
of the
do.
major cities in Colombia, most of the night, and Abdu's heading to Mexico.
Yeah. Trying to figure out exactly what's going to go on in Mexico, but
No, you don't have to, bro.
Nothing's
Yeah.
going on in
You don't
Mexico.
have to.
Trust me, dude.
Yeah, you be here and you'll be there then.